The train screamed as it pulled away, leaving behind a cloud of steam that swallowed the tiny rural station whole. Clara Whitmore stood alone on the wooden platform, clutching a worn leather suitcase that carried everything she owned and every hope she had left. The letter had promised a new life, a husband, a home, a future. She had crossed 3 states believing in those carefully written words, words signed by a man named Thomas Hale. But Thomas Hale was nowhere to be seen. No tall rancher in a black coat, no welcoming smile, no wagon waiting near the tracks. Just wind, cold endless wind sweeping dust across the empty station. Passengers had long since disappeared. The station master avoided her eyes. Clara tried to steady her breathing. "He's late," she whispered to herself. That's all. But as the golden light of afternoon faded into the bruised purple of evening, reality began tightening around her chest. People in town had stared at her the moment she stepped off the train. They all knew she was the mail order bride who had been forgotten. Or worse, rejected. The sky darkened, the station doors locked. Clara remained on the bench, hands trembling in her lap. The letter she had memorized now felt like a cruel joke. She had sold her mother's piano to afford the journey. She had burned the bridge to her old life. There was nowhere to return to. Tears blurred the lantern lights in the distance. Maybe she had been foolish to believe that love could be arranged through ink and paper. Maybe she deserved this humiliation. By the time night fully arrived, Clara's hope had nearly drained away. She was no longer waiting for a man. She was waiting for a miracle. The town of Ash Hollow was quiet after dark. Windows glowed softly behind curtains, and somewhere far off, a dog barked. Clara remained seated, fighting the urge to cry. Every passing minute felt heavier. The sound of wagon wheels approaching made her heart leap, but the wagon passed by without slowing. She felt invisible. Finally, the station master stepped out, clearing his throat awkwardly. "Miss, it's closing time. You can't stay here all night." Clara swallowed. "I have nowhere else to go." The older man shifted uncomfortably. Maybe the boarding house. But his tone suggested she wasn't welcome there either. News traveled fast in small towns. A bride left at the altar, or in this case, at the station, was gossip waiting to happen. Clara picked up her suitcase. Pride was the only thing she had left, and even that was cracking. She walked toward the dirt road, unsure where her feet were leading her. Each step felt like surrender. She imagined returning home in disgrace, imagined the whispers of neighbors. No, she couldn't go back. She wouldn't. She reached the edge of town near a weathered wooden fence. Beyond it stretched open fields beneath a sky glittering with stars. The vastness made her feel small, painfully small. She sank to her knees beside her suitcase and let the tears finally fall. "I tried," she whispered into the darkness. "I really tried." The wind carried her broken words across the fields. It was the soft crunch of small boots against gravel that made her lift her head. She quickly wiped her face, embarrassed to be seen. A little boy stood a few feet away, no older than 6. His blonde hair was messy, his overalls patched at the knees. He stared at her with solemn blue eyes. "Are you the lady from the train?" he asked. Clara hesitated. "Yes." He studied her suitcase, then her tear-streaked cheeks. "You're supposed to marry my papa." Her breath caught painfully in her throat. "Your papa."
The boy nodded.
"Thomas Hale." He kicked at the dirt. He was coming, but he didn't. The world seemed to tilt. "Why?" The boy's lips trembled slightly. "He got hurt this morning. Horse threw him. He's at home. He don't know if you came." Clara's heart pounded wildly. All this time he hadn't abandoned her. He had been injured. Shame flooded her for doubting, for almost giving up. "Is he badly hurt?" The boy shrugged. "Doc says he'll be fine, but he can't walk much." He paused, staring at her with something fragile in his expression. "I waited at the road. I thought maybe you wouldn't come." Clara's throat tightened. "I came." The boy stepped closer. His small voice broke through the quiet night in a whisper that would change everything. "Are you gonna leave too, Mama?" The word hit her like lightning. Mama. Clara froze. No one had ever called her that. No one had ever needed her like that. The emptiness she had felt only moments before began to crack, making room for something warm and unfamiliar. She looked into the child's hopeful eyes and understood something profound. Maybe she hadn't been left behind at all. Maybe she had been led exactly where she was meant to be. The Hale Ranch stood quiet beneath moonlight when they arrived. It wasn't grand, but it was sturdy, built from hard work and stubborn determination. Clara's heart raced as the boy led her inside. Thomas Hale lay on a sofa near the fireplace, his leg bandaged and propped up. He looked startled when the door opened. His eyes, storm gray and sharp, widened when he saw her. "You came," he breathed. Clara nodded, unsure whether to smile or cry. "I thought you hadn't." Pain flickered across his face, not from his injury, but from guilt. I tried to get there. Horse spooked. I'm sorry. There was something sincere in his voice. Something raw. This wasn't a man who had meant to leave her stranded. Their eyes locked in a long silence filled with unspoken apologies and fragile beginnings. Adjusting to the ranch was harder than Clara expected. Thomas was proud and unused to asking for help. The house felt cold, not from lack of fire, but from lack of softness. The boy, whose name was Samuel, followed her everywhere, as if afraid she might vanish. Clara cooked, cleaned, mended curtains. Slowly, she added warmth to the rooms. Samuel laughed more each day. Thomas watched quietly from a distance, conflicted. One evening, Clara overheard Thomas speaking to the doctor outside. She deserves better than this mess. I don't even know how to be a husband. The words struck her deeply. He wasn't rejecting her. He was afraid of failing her. For the first time, she realized they were both standing on uncertain ground. The turning point came during a thunderstorm. Samuel woke crying from a nightmare. Without thinking, Clara rushed to him, cradling him close. I'm here, she whispered. Thomas watched from the doorway as his son clung to her. Don't go away, Mama, Samuel sobbed. Clara's eyes met Thomas's across the dim room. Something shifted between them, something tender and undeniable. Later that night, Thomas spoke quietly. You don't have to stay. I won't hold you here. Clara looked around the house, at the warmth slowly growing, at the child who needed her, at the man learning how to open his heart. I'm not staying because I have nowhere else to go, she said softly. I'm staying because I want to. For the first time, Thomas smiled fully. Weeks passed. Clara became the heart of the ranch. Laughter replaced silence. Meals became moments of connection. Even the townspeople began softening toward her. But Clara still feared one thing, that this happiness might disappear as suddenly as it had almost done at the station. One afternoon, she found Thomas struggling to walk without his crutch. You don't have to prove anything, she told him gently. He looked at her with steady intensity. I'm not proving anything. I'm building something. Building what? A future. With you. Winter approached, and with it came hardship. Supplies ran low. The ranch faced financial strain from Thomas's injury. Doubt crept back into Clara's mind. Had she chosen a life built on uncertainty? One evening, Samuel handed her a drawing. It showed 3 stick figures holding hands beneath a bright sun. That's us, he said proudly. That's my mama. Tears filled her eyes again, but this time they were not from despair. They were from belonging. Spring arrived like a promise fulfilled. The ranch survived the winter. Thomas stood tall again. And on a warm Sunday morning, in front of a small gathering in town, Clara finally became Mrs. Hale. But the true wedding had happened long before that, on a dark night at a lonely station when a little boy had called her mama. As she watched Samuel chase butterflies in the field and felt Thomas's hand steady in hers, Clara understood something life-changing. Sometimes love doesn't arrive the way we expect. Sometimes it finds us when we are at our lowest. And sometimes, when we think we've been abandoned, we've actually just been led home.